because you come from the hardware background, want to understand a bit more before the applications come onto technology. Understand from you, how adaptive they take place in terms of that the new evolution, which is wearables, in terms of the hardware's perspective.
Okay, so the current generation of wearables that we see today, like some of the watches, they're actually more like a miniaturized mobile phone than an actual sort of Internet of Things type device. So they're quite capable today, and I think the specs on the Samsung watch or the Motorola watch that we have right now, they're actually quite a bit better than the original Android phone that came out in 2008. So it's remarkable, how this technology has been able to be miniaturized and transformed into something that's truly wearable. In fact, something like Google Glass actually is using the same processor as the Samsung Galaxy Nexus phone. And a lot of the hardware, including the connectivity, is very similar. So there's a lot of overlap, and I think in the industry there's some wrestling to try to figure out, is a wearable really like a miniature phone, or is it something else? And I think the trend going forward will be to probably keep increasing the CPU power, the memory, but there's a big trade-off there to be made with the battery life. So it's still a struggle, and there are still a lot of things that can be improved.
So that was my next question. I'm glad you alluded to that, the battery life. This is where the problems happening mostly in the medical, wearable devices in the medical industry. Battery life is where the problem is, and that's why I think there is still a hesitation for people to move forward in terms of implants, actually.
Okay.
With the battery life. So just wanted your take on how this is going to go forward.
Well, I'm not an expert on batteries, but what I would say is that just like we have Moore's law for silicon, we need to come up with something similar for batteries. And I think it's going to take some investment and improvement in the battery technology. That's one, vector to improve things. And I think the second thing really is refinement of the hardware and as well as the software. Software actually plays a big role in the power consumption. As you can see with some of the wearables that released, for example, the Motorola 360 watch, when it first came out, the battery life was actually terrible, and it was hard to get through even a single day without charging it. And then as they did a couple updates, now it's actually quite good. It lasts well more than a day, almost 2 days. And that's purely just making software improvements. So I think we need to improve on 3 things: the battery itself, the hardware design, and the software.
So when it comes to designing the hardware, when we think of wearables, most of the focus has been on wrist wearables, which is what you use on the bands and things like that. Mm-hmm. Is it because it's easier for consumers to wear that, and that's how we're defining the market? Or how do we think beyond the wrist wearables? Because there are many other applications wearables.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And I think that Google Glass certainly pioneered the sort of wearable on your face, and I've had a Samsung smartwatch for a while since they came out, and I borrowed a Google Glass from a friend of mine before I thought about buying one, and I came home with it, and my wife didn't notice it for about 15 minutes, and then she said, "What is that thing on your face?" And then she said, "Oh my God, it's Google Glass. You better take that thing outside. I don't want Google spying on us." And I think, unfortunately, that's the reality of what a lot of people think about when something is like right in their face. And a watch, even a watch that has a camera, it's sort of, can be concealed or just, not prominently in somebody's face and making them uncomfortable. So I think there's a social aspect to it that will probably have to be improved, and and then we really need to think about what else can we do with wearables.
Just looking at, since you have a background of operating systems for the mobile, what do you think? Do you think there will be anything from the interoperability point of view that anyone in that field should be looking at, with the wearable technologies?
Sure, I think interoperability is a big sort of area, it's a challenge, quite frankly, and I think there's many reasons for it. I think leaders in the space may not necessarily even want to have interoperability because they actually own a certain segment of the market. And you can think about some of the wrist wearables for fitness, right? If you're big enough, you don't really necessarily want to bring everything down to the lowest common denominator. But then with all the different technologies, people don't really want to necessarily get stuck in an ecosystem where they need to have the matching computer, matching phone, matching tablet, and matching watch or glasses. So I think consumers at some point will really kind of hope these things will improve. But there's a lot of problems with interoperability from some of the basic standards, including, for example, if you look at wireless charging. Wireless charging is something that consumers probably, everybody likes the idea of it, but there are at least 3 different standards. So the only thing worse than having 3 different USB plugs, to plug your phone into, is having 3 different charging mats by your bed, to charge your phone, your tablet, and your wearable. So I think the industry is really in its infancy, and there probably over time will be some, these standards will kind of coalesce, and either, in the case of the wireless charging, maybe the 3 technologies can coexist in one mat, or maybe one will become dominant, and then the problem will kind of go away.
Right, that's great.
My favorite wearable that I actually have is the Moto 360 watch, and I think partially because it looks more like a normal watch, but also because it's quite useful. It doesn't have as many features as some of the other watches, but what it does have is the usage model is quite straightforward. So it's not the fanciest one. For example, the Samsung one actually has a lot more features. You can answer a phone call with it. You can take a picture with it. But mostly I prefer the simplicity of the Moto watch. Yeah, that's a good question. I kind of don't really think that it's going to be something that you're going to wear on your face because of the social stigma attached with it currently, and I can't really. I almost think maybe it's going to be some kind of implanted device that you won't actually wear, but it'll be implanted into your body, and that's kind of scary. But at the same time, that might be the next big thing instead of having it on your watch. But what I do think about watches is that maybe someday we'll, just like we look back at laptops compared to a tablet and think that, oh, I can't believe I used to carry this gigantic laptop around with me all the time. I think sometime we're going to look at our iPhones and our Android phones, and we're going to think, wow, this is really a brick, and my wearable is really doing all that I need, and I don't really need
Sure. Thank
to have a big phone in my pocket.
All right.
Thank